I'm 29 male, licensed clinical social worker in Ohio. I work with at-risk youth in underfunded public schools. I make $55,000 a year, drive a used Honda Civic, pack my lunch 4 days out of 5, and I have never once been ashamed of any of it. I want to lead with that because it matters for everything that follows. My girlfriend and I had been together for 8 months. She came from upper-middle-class money, not generational wealth, but the kind of comfortable background where private school was just assumed and financial stress was something other families dealt with. She was sharp, ambitious, and for those 8 months, I genuinely thought we were building something honest together. Then 3 days before I was supposed to have dinner with her parents, my phone buzzed while I was finishing case notes at my desk. Hey, so I told my parents you earn $200,000. Please just go along with it. I'll explain later. It's just easier this way. I read it twice. Set my phone face down on the desk. The case I'd been documenting was a 14-year-old kid who'd been sleeping in his car. I'd spent my afternoon helping him navigate emergency housing applications. And my girlfriend of 8 months wanted me to sit across from her parents and pretend to be a 6-figure earner so they wouldn't look at me differently. I picked the phone back up and typed, "We'll talk tonight." She called immediately. I know it sounds bad. It is bad. They have certain expectations. My dad especially. He's old-fashioned about this stuff. Once they actually get to know you, the salary thing won't matter, but right now I just need them to think I'm someone I'm not. Silence. Then, it's one dinner. It's not a big deal. It's a big deal to me. She went quiet in that way she had when she was reframing her argument. Can you just do this one thing for me? Please? I'll explain everything after. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I said I'd see her Saturday. Here's what I didn't tell her. I already knew what I was going to do at that dinner. Some decisions aren't really decisions. They're just who you are showing itself. What I didn't know yet was how deep this whole thing actually went. Thursday night, 2 days before the dinner, I got a call from a buddy of mine who moved in the same social circles as my girlfriend's family. He was awkward on the phone, hemming around something. Just say it, I told him. She's been telling people in her friend group that you're a financial consultant. I heard it at a cookout back in June and figured you two had some kind of arrangement or whatever, but now I'm hearing about this dinner situation, and I thought you should know.
June.
We'd been together since January. She'd been misrepresenting who I was before we even hit the 6-month mark. This wasn't a panicked lie she'd invented for one dinner. This was a whole constructed identity she'd been maintaining for months across multiple social circles. I sat with that information for a long time. I didn't confront her before dinner. I wanted to, but something told me to wait. To let it play out completely. To see exactly how far she'd take it when she thought it was working. Saturday came. Nice restaurant. Her parents were already seated when we arrived. Her father in a blazer, her mother in pearls, both wearing the pleasant expressions of people who decided in advance how the evening was going to go. Her father stood and shook my hand firmly. Good to finally sit down with you properly. We've heard a lot about you. I'm sure you have, I said. Smiled. My girlfriend's hand tightened on my arm. We sat, ordered drinks, and her mother launched into questions with real precision. How long had I been in finance? What kind of consulting? Was I with a firm or independent? And here's the thing, my girlfriend jumped in every single time. She was smooth about it, redirecting, adding details I'd never heard before. She'd built an entire fictional version of me, and she knew it cold. This wasn't a panicked cover story being assembled in real time. This was a performance she'd rehearsed. Her father wasn't fully buying it, though. I could see it. He kept asking me follow-up questions directly, noticing the slight lag where my girlfriend was consistently answering for me. He'd spent 30 years as a corporate attorney. He knew when a story had a ghostwriter. Finally, there was a natural pause. Her mother had just finished saying something about investment returns, looking at me expectantly. I set down my water glass. I want to be straightforward with both of you, I said, because I think you deserve that, and honestly, so do I. My girlfriend's smile went rigid. I'm not a financial consultant. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work with at-risk youth in public schools in Columbus. I make $55,000 a year. That's who I am. That's what I do, and I'm not apologizing for it. The table went completely silent. Her mother's expression cycled through about 4 different things in 2 seconds. Confusion, then realization, then something sharp and recalibrating as she looked at her daughter. Her father just looked at me for a long moment. Then he leaned forward. "You just told the truth in a situation where most men would have taken the easy road," he said. "Why?" "Because I'm not interested in building a relationship with your family on a lie. And the work I do matters. I help kids who have nobody. I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise." Her father nodded slowly. Then he said, "I respect that more than any salary." Her mother said nothing. She was looking at her daughter. My girlfriend was staring at the tablecloth. The drive home was a war zone with the volume turned off. She didn't explode in the car. She was too controlled for that. She sat with her arms crossed looking out the window and didn't say a word until we got back to my apartment. Then she walked in ahead of me, turned around and said, "You humiliated me." I closed the door. I told the truth. In front of my parents. On purpose. Her voice was tight. "You knew what you were going to do before we even walked in there." "Yes, I did." "That's a betrayal." I took a breath. "You've been telling your friends I'm a financial consultant since June. 5 months into our relationship. You built a fake version of me for your entire social circle. Tell me how that's not the betrayal." She pivoted instantly. That was her thing. She could change direction faster than anyone I'd ever met. "I was protecting us. You don't understand the world I come from. These people judge you on income. I was buying us time until you," she stopped. "Until I what?" She didn't answer, but I understood. She'd been waiting for me to become someone else. Someone who fit the story she'd been telling people. "I need you to leave," I said. "This is not a negotiation." She left, but she didn't go quietly, and that's where things got genuinely ugly. Over the next 2 weeks, she ran a campaign that was impressive in its pettiness. First, she called my buddy and told him I'd blindsided her family as some kind of power move and that I was unstable. He texted me immediately. "She's working people. Just thought you should know." Then she started telling mutual acquaintances that I'd humiliated her parents and made a scene. The story evolved every time it was repeated. By the 3rd version, apparently I'd stood up at the table. Then she escalated in a way I genuinely didn't see coming. She contacted my workplace, sent an email to my organization suggesting I'd been sharing confidential client information with her during our relationship. Let me be very clear about what that means in my field. That's not a petty accusation. That's a HIPAA violation allegation. That's a potential licensing board complaint. That's the kind of thing that can end a career in social work, and she knew enough about my job to understand exactly what she was doing when she sent that email. HR called me in the next morning. I kept my composure in that meeting, but my hands were shaking under the table, not from fear but from the specific kind of rage you feel when someone targets something you've given everything to build. I had never, not once, discussed a single client detail with her. I'm meticulous about that boundary. It's not even something I think about. It's just how I operate. I provided HR with our complete text message history. I showed them that she'd been misrepresenting my career to people for months, that we'd just broken up following a conflict at a dinner with her parents, and that her claim had 0 substance. My supervisor, who'd known me for 4 years, confirmed my professional record and shut it down. But I was not done. I want to be honest here. I'm someone who believes in de-escalation. I teach teenagers how to process anger without blowing up their lives. I know better than most people how badly reactive decisions can backfire. So when I say what I did next, I want you to understand it wasn't hot-headed. I took a week. I thought it through. I talked to people I trusted. And then I moved deliberately. First, I documented everything. Every text, including the original "Tell my parents you earned $200,000 message, the calls before dinner, the follow-up messages after, the timeline of her misrepresentations, and the HR complaint with its outcome. I organized it like a case file. It's what I know how to do. Then I reached out to her father. I know how that sounds. But here's the context. At dinner, before we left, While my girlfriend was in the restroom, her father had pressed his card into my hand and said quietly, "Whatever happens here, that kind of honesty is rare." I mean what I said. He was a retired corporate attorney. More importantly, he was someone with actual standing in her life and enough integrity to use it correctly. I sent him a professional, factual email. I explained that his daughter had filed a complaint with my employer containing false allegations targeting my professional license. I attached the documentation. I told him I wanted him to know because I believed he'd want to know, and because if it went further, I would pursue every available legal remedy for defamation and tortious interference with my employment. That wasn't theater. I'd already had a consultation with an employment attorney by that point. Filing a knowingly false complaint to someone's employer with intent to damage their employment is actionable in Ohio. My attorney had been clear. If I could demonstrate the complaint was made in bad faith, which the text history and total absence of supporting evidence strongly suggested, I had a real case. The relevant statute of limitations in Ohio for defamation is 1 year, so I had time to proceed carefully if it came to that. Her father responded in under 6 hours. "I've spoken with her. This won't happen again. I owe you an apology on behalf of my family. What you've described is unacceptable, and I'm handling it directly." I don't know exactly what that conversation looked like between them. I can imagine pieces of it. A retired litigator who spent his career detecting inconsistency, sitting across from his daughter with a printed email and a stack of forwarded text messages, asking her to explain herself. He wasn't doing it as a favor to me. He was doing it because he had a standard and she'd fallen below it badly. What happened next came through mutual acquaintances over the following few weeks. The narrative she'd been running, unstable ex, made a scene, power move, fell apart. Because her father was in those same circles. And he started quietly, calmly, accurately correcting the record. Not publicly, not dramatically. Just the way an attorney corrects a false statement. Precisely and completely. The friend group that had believed financial consultant for 8 months now had the full picture. Not just about my salary, about all of it. The constructed story, the dinner, the HR complaint, the outcome. She didn't lose everyone. But she lost credibility with the people whose perception she'd spent the most energy managing. The ones she'd been performing for. And her mother. The woman who'd sat at that dinner table watching her plan fall apart in real time, apparently had a significant conversation with her daughter in the weeks after. I don't know what was said. But I know it wasn't comfortable. Her father called me one more time, about a month later. Short call. He thanked me for handling it the way I did. Then he said, "She learned something about character from someone I think she's going to be smart enough to regret losing. That means something, even if it doesn't feel like it right now." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just thanked him. She texted me once, about 3 weeks after that call. I think I handled things badly. I read it. I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty. Just because there was nothing I could say that would mean more than the silence already did. I still drive the Civic. I still make $55,000. Last week, the kid I'd helped get into emergency housing back in the fall stopped me in the school hallway to show me his first B on a history test. He was grinning like he'd won something real. He had. And honestly, so had I. If this story did something for you, hit subscribe, because apparently the truth at a dinner table hits harder than a 6-figure salary, and I've got more where this came from.